Wonderful. We are in middle of Torah Chet. Torah Chet, and we're in middle of Zayin, part 7 of Torah Chet in Likutei Moharan. Torah Chet is called Ra'iti Menorat Zahav. And we were speaking about yesterday, where did Max go?
We lost him.
Okay, well, this recap here is for him. Okay, I'm going to start the recap. Anyways, the recap of yesterday. In short, Rabbi Nachman is speaking about how there is a certain tikkun, something that we can do, a process that we can go through in order to clean and purify ourselves from any negativity in the four elements. Okay, the four elements is the four channels of life. The four channels of life. All of life in the whole universe. All of life in the whole universe. We're giving a short recap of the shir from yesterday. So all of life in the whole universe is drawn and is brought into existence through the four letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And these are the four elements. And these four letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, every level that Hashem creates of worlds, and in each world, the godliness is more concealed than the physical aspect, the material aspect is more and more revealed until finally we come to this physical world, which is the Olam Ha'asiyah, the materialistic world, the world of complete actualizing of the divine. And in this world, the four letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei are known as the four elements that the world, all of nature, is made up of. And these are the fire and the wind and the water and earth, which also correspond to the inanimate objects, the plant life, the animal life, and humankind. Okay? And every person is made up of these four elements. Some of us, we all have different combinations, our combinations. The ratio of these four elements and what is stronger from the four elements is a little bit different by every person. And that's why the nature of people is different. Our nature is different. And some people tend to be more Aish, some people, which is more fire. Okay, so some people are more Ruach. They socialize more, they speak more, they are more motivated, they're more driven, just naturally. Some people are more quiet to themselves and kind of like very susceptible to depression and apathy, but in a good way. They could be very consistent. They could be, in a good way, in a positive way. These are the people that you want to have around when you're going through some chaos in your life. They can be a rock, that you can count on them. Okay, that's the Afar, that's the earth. And then you have also Mayim, which are the people that enjoy the good life. We all know those type of people that enjoy all of the pleasures of this world, and it could be in a wonderful way. They could make sure that everyone in shul has a wonderful kiddush, and they could make sure that the shul is beautiful, and the people in the kollalim have wonderful checks coming into them, and they could make sure that all of the mitzvot that they buy, that they do, is in the most beautiful, most wonderful way, and so they glorify the name of Hashem, right? And they do tremendous amount of chesed, and they make sure that even the people that are less fortunate have all their needs. I know that, for example, my Rosh Kollel does that. When it comes Pesach time, he sends these huge boxes of kimcha, what's called kimcha de pischa, of all the needs that all the families, all these needy families, they may need in their big family. He gives these huge boxes with the produce and anything that you can even think of that you might need for Pesach, worth about at least 1,000 shekels. Okay, so this is an aspect of mayim. This is an aspect of water. When a person has that expansion of life, that flourishing, and for yourself and for others also. But in a positive way, it's for others and it's for Hashem especially. And so, how does a person rectify that his four elements should be completely clean from any of the negativity and completely be an expression of the Yud Kei Vav Kei? Rabbi Nachman spoke about how that comes through the learning of Torah, learning halacha especially, and clarifying in every halacha, every detail, what is the aspect that is permissible and what is the aspect that's not permissible. The good from the bad, that boyer, that selecting, that clarifying of the good from the bad that you do in halacha, in every part, in every aspect of this physical experience, in this physical world. And that's why he points out halacha. This is the point that Rabbi Nachman wants to let us know. The point of importance in this learning of Torah is the fact that it is a tikkun, it's rectifying and purifying the physical experience. And that's how we rectify the physical expression of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the 4 elements. Okay, so the Yud Kei Vav Kei is the source. The 4 elements is the physical expression of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And that's where problems happen. That's where there's concealment of the Yud Kei Vav Kei to such a point where a person can use the 4 elements in a negative way. The way to rectify it is to purify the physical expression of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So how do we do that? We go into the physical expression of the divine. That is the Torah. Because the Torah, obviously, there is the source of the Torah. In some tremendously transcendent form, completely beyond our grasp. Yes, but the fact that the Torah was given to us, it was given to us in a way that we can grasp it, in a way that we can experience it. The Torah has been enclosed in a physical form in order that it can come down into this physical world and we can experience the divine through the physicality of this world. And especially which part of the Torah? The halacha part of the Torah, which is the part of the Torah that is the physical, every physical experience that you may ever happen to that may ever you can come across in this life. There's some halacha that has to do with how to experience that, how to live the divine in that physical experience. What is the kosher and what is the not kosher? What's permissible, what's the not permissible? And when you clarify that by learning halacha, clearly knowing what is the way of living, the godly way of living, the way of living elokus in every physical experience, then you are cleaning your 4 elements, the physical expression of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, you're cleaning it away until to a point where the Yud Kei Vav Kei can shine through, which is the complete tzaddik that we were speaking about. And so Rabbi Nachman speaks about how there's 2 parts to this. There is the actual learning of the Torah, but you need, for the learning of the Torah, in order to draw that divine energy, that divine consciousness of Hashem into the physical world, into the Torah, which is the ability to understand the Torah and to, as he says, to delve deeply into it and to clarify what is Hashem's will, what is Hashem's, the revelation of Hashem in every experience of life. You need that energy. Where is it drawn from? Where do you get that ability to understand the Torah and to clarify in every halacha? So you get it from the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Yud Kei Vav Kei is the 4 elements, but in its transcendent, absolutely transcendent form, in its source, in its potential form. Okay? What is that? Rabbi Nachman says that is tefillah. That is prayer. Okay? Tefillah is the divine in the potential form, the divine energy in the potential form. Tefillah is the absolute first point of existence. The first point of all of the worlds is called tefillah, because tefillah is all about creating. It's about creating something new, and it's the first point of creation. It's the point of creation where something is created still only in the potential form. Okay, that's what tefillah is, because tefillah is all about emunah. It's all about it's based on, the whole tefillah is an expression of the belief system that Hashem is constantly creating everything and bringing everything into existence. And so when I pray for something, that thing that I'm praying for is brought into existence in its first form, in its potential, in its still transcendent form. Okay? And so that's the divine energy at the beginning of its revelation, the beginning where it is being manifested, but it's still completely transcendent, completely potential. We need to draw that into the Torah. So now I take that energy, I take that consciousness, I take that spark of inspiration, that experiencing of Hashem that comes from the belief and the experiencing of His presence, that He's constantly creating everything in you, and everything that I am is all from Him. Okay, and I take that and I draw it into the Torah. I open up my halacha sefer, I open up the Gemara, and now I'm able to understand. With that energy, I'm able to understand the halacha, and with that belief system, okay, that connection, that what's called dveikut, that connection to Hashem, I'm able to understand clearly the halacha, and I'm able to seek, and this is the important point, I'm able to seek what is Hashem's will, what is Hashem's desire in every aspect of the physical experience. Okay, how would Hashem's light be revealed in every aspect of the mundane? That's what halacha is all about. In every situation, in every experience, in every circumstance, whatever scenario comes up, I know how the divine will be revealed. What is Hashem's will in this situation? So He's no longer concealed. When is Hashem concealed? When the physical world is not acting according to the Torah. But when the physical world is in alignment with what the Torah sets, what is kosher, what is mutar, what is permissible, what is pure, etc., right? All of what halakha is teaching us about. And when it's all in alignment with that, so then the Yud Kei Vav Ki shines through, and all of the negativity falls away. All of the klipa falls away. And that happens also on a personal level, that the negativity from the four elements falls away, and the Yud Kei Vav Ki shines through. So that is drawn from the tefillah, as we said. That's the first point of the drawing of this energy. That's the source of this energy, of this divine consciousness. It's the belief system, the dveikut. Okay, that's what tefillah is all about. It's that connection to source, that inclusion in the source, that belief system and that dveikut that you're experiencing the Ribono Shel Olam, and then you draw that tremendous energy of tremendous pleasure of experiencing Hashem. You draw it into your learning Torah, and now you're seeking, you're motivated to seek. Hey, I love this. I love Hashem so much. I'm experiencing so much pleasure in this experience, in this connection with Hashem, in this dveikut with Hashem, that I want to find and I want to seek out how I can elevate this physical world that I'm in, this physical experience that I'm in, to elevate it so that this light, this experience of this divine pleasure, this infinite pleasure, can be constant and constantly revealed in my physical experience. And that's how I will elevate the mundane. How do I do that? I open up my Gemara, I open up my Shulchan Aruch, and I learn, what does the Torah tell me? How do I live such a life? And so then I'm clarifying and I'm understanding clearly what is the way to live this life. What is the will of Hashem in every experience? What is the mutar? What is the permissible? What is the pure? And what is the kosher? And so that's what Rabbi Nachman said. He said that there's three things. There's something called, we spoke about this yesterday, it's a Rashi table, the acronym of the word oneg. Oneg means pleasure. And oneg has ayin at the beginning, which stands for Eden. Eden is the source for Gan Eden. So Eden is the ayin. The nun in the middle of this word oneg stands for Nahar, the river. And Gimel, oneg, the Gimel at the end stands for Gan, the garden. Okay, that's the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is made up of three parts. This whole process that we spoke about. The Garden of Eden is just the last part. The Torah, it represents the garden itself. Our neshamot, our souls, grow in this garden, just like plants, flowers, and trees grow in a garden. Our souls grow in this garden. Our life is from this Torah, like we spoke about at the beginning of the Torah, how the tzaddik draws to us the breath of life from the Torah. Where does he draw it from? Where does the tzaddik draw it from? From the Torah itself. So the tzaddik is kind of like the roots in the garden that is giving us this light, this divine breath, the breath of Hashem, the breath of life that makes us flourish and grow. But where is it drawn from? It's drawn, where does all of this energy of life, drawn into the Garden of Eden. Where is it drawn from? There's a nahar, there's a river, there is a fountain and a river that brings this into the garden. And where does that fountain come from? It comes from the Eden. Eden is the source. And in Kabbalah language, okay, what parallels to this in Kabbalah is that Eden represents the Chachma, the garden, the Gan represents the Bina, and the Nahar represents the Yesod of the Chachma. Okay, the Yesod the Abba, what's called the Yesod the Abba. Now, the Eden, the source of this fountain that goes into the Gan, that represents the Tefillah, says Rabbi Nachman. And that's the Ma'ayan mi bet Hashem yetzeh, says Rabbi Nachman. There's a fountain, a river that is drawn, a spring that is drawn from, that comes out of the house of Hashem. And the house of Hashem is Tefillah, as it says, Ki beiti bet tefillah. My house is the house of prayer. Okay? So, therefore, based on this piece that we learned yesterday, it's tremendously good advice that a person after his tefillah, after his prayer, he sits down and he learns a few halachot. Okay, because Rabbi Nachman said yesterday, in our shir yesterday, we mentioned what Rabbi Nachman said, that when a person prays for something and he is longing for that thing to be manifested, and so his longing for that thing to be manifested causes him a heartache. The Gemara in Brachot speaks about this, right? Me'ayen b'tfilato balide ke'ev lev, as it says, tocheret memushachat machalat lev. It brings him to a heartache because of this extended longing for that which he is praying for to be manifested. What should he do, says the Gemara? What is the tikkun? He should ya'asuk b'Torah. Okay, he should learn Torah. He should involve himself in deep Torah study, in understanding the Torah and clarifying the Torah and understanding it clearly. Why is that? As we saw, Rabbi Nachman says, the potential, the energy, what is being born in its potential form, when you pray for something, okay, in order for it to be manifested and actualized, it needs to come through the Gan. It needs to come through the garden. And that is the learning of Torah. The learning of Torah is taking that spark of everything is made up of godliness, that spark of godliness that you just prayed for and was just revealed and drawn in the potential form, and you're bringing it into the physical form, because the whole physical form is created and manifested through the Torah. As the Zohar says, that this world, when Hashem created the world, he looked in the Torah and created the world, meaning that the physical manifestation, the actualizing of what is drawn from Hashem, from the Ein Sof, is through the Torah. Okay, that's all of the letters in the Torah and all of the ideas in the Torah, all of the halachot, the 613 mitzvot, as we spoke about in Torah Zayin, and the last Torah of Eila Mishpatim, the idea of the Eitzot, right? The counsel, the advice, the 613 counsels of the Torah is the physical and practical application and expression of the Chachma, of the divine energy. And that's how things are born and brought into the physical realm. So that's why it's a good advice that a person, after he prays for something, he learns halacha. He learns Torah, especially if he learns halacha. And what's really interesting to point out is that the Baal Shem Tov had a minhag. After every prayer, he would sit down and he would learn halacha. Okay, and he says to do this also. He says for his Talmidim to do this. And what is the Baal Shem Tov's explanation for the importance and significance of this minhag? The Baal Shem Tov said that when a person prays, so a person is drawing tremendous divine energy. Okay, he's drawing this tremendous energy when he's praying properly, obviously. If a person is praying and he's somewhere else completely, and he just wakes up when he finishes praying, so then he's not really drawing anything. He was really drawn somewhere else, right? But when a person is praying and he's drawing this divine energy, the veikut, the connection to the Ribono Shel Olam, by expressing this, verbally expressing and connecting through this belief system and this dveikut, this experience of Hashem, then there's this tremendous energy that's being drawn. And if a person after the prayer closes the siddur and goes ahead and involves himself in the mundane, there is a big danger that that energy will be drawn into negative things, into physical things that are not connected to Hashem. And it would be lost. Not only would it be lost, it could be used, could become something negative. But when a person, after his davening, he sits down and he learns one or two halachot, so then that energy is being drawn into the vessel. Okay, that light is being drawn into a holy, proper, complete vessel, and then it's able to be manifested as a blessing. Okay, so this is very, very similar and paralleling what we're learning here in this Torah now of Rabbi Nachman. Okay, so I think we have some time now to continue reading from where we stopped yesterday. Okay, so we stopped here in the middle of Ot Zayin. והיינו דכתיב ונהר יוצא מעדן להשקות את הגן ומשם ייפרד והיה לארבעה ראשים. And so he explains that this, what we just spoke about, this whole Torah about the Eden and the fountain, the spring that is drawn from the Eden and goes and gives life to the garden itself, to the Gan. This is all what the pasuk is speaking about when it says that v'nahar yotzeh me'eden lashkot et hagan. There is a pasuk, clear pasuk in Bereshit that says that there's this river that comes out of Eden, and it flows from Eden into the garden, and it waters the garden. And from there, from the garden, it separates, becoming into four smaller rivers. Eden, in this pasuk, what is it referring to? As we spoke about, ובחינת התפילה. כי עדן עין לא ראתה, כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, שזהו בחינת תפילה, שהוא למעלה מן הטבע. כי על ידי תפילה משנה הטבע כנ"ל, שזהו בחינת עדן עין לא ראתה, כי למעלה מהטבע אין לנו שום תפיסה. How in this place, how does Rabbi Nachman explain that Eden is prayer? Yesterday he was speaking about how the river comes out of the Beit Hashem, the house of Hashem, and then he said that the house of Hashem is prayer. But now he's adding to that, and he's saying, because Eden, we know about Eden, that Eden is beyond what the eye can grasp. Okay, no eye has seen it. It says the pasuk in Yeshayahu. Okay, so tefillah is also beyond what the eye can grasp, says Rabbi Nachman, because tefillah is the supernatural. The definition of prayer is the supernatural. This is what we spoke about in Torah Zayin, that the whole prayer is only because you believe in Hashem that is above nature, and that there is no nature, and all of nature is constantly being brought into existence by the Ribono Shel Olam. So tefillah, prayer, is all about above nature. It's beyond nature, and we are living a physical, natural experience in this physical world. And so tefillah is beyond what the eye can grasp. It's beyond the physical grasp that we are living with. So Eden is beyond what the eye can grasp, and prayer is this aspect of what is beyond what is graspable. Bilti musag, as it's called in Hebrew. It's beyond what is graspable. והיינו ונהר יוצא מעדן, היינו מהתפילה, כנ"ל ומעיין מבית השם יצא להשקות את הגן, הוא התורה כנ"ל מעיין גנים. And so this is the river the river comes out of Eden. Where is Eden? It's the prayer. And this river is drawn from the prayer, and it goes into the garden in order to water the garden. What is the garden? The garden is the Torah. By the way, there's a nice, interesting hint to this, that the Torah is the Gan. First of all, yesterday we saw that Rabbi Nachman brings clear proof that the Zohar says that the Torah is the Gan, is the garden. But a nice hint to that is that the Torah has 53 parshiot in it. There's 53 parshiot in the 5 books of the Torah Shebichtav, and the 53 is the numerical value of Gan, okay, which is garden. Okay, that's an interesting little hint to that. Also, by the way, there's 53 prakim in the Likutei Moharan, in the Tanya. Anyways, back to Rabbi Nachman. So, וכאשר נמשך מעיין החוכמה מהתפילה אל הגן שהוא התורה, אזי התרביעו עצבינו דשאים, נשמות ישראל. When this spring is drawn from this spring of Chokhmah, he calls it. Okay, remember I said before that Eden, the aspect of Eden in the Sefirot, is called Chokhmah. So Rabbi Nachman says here, when this spring of Chachma, this water of Chachma, this river of Chachma is drawn from the Tefillah into the garden, which is the Torah, אזי התרביעו העשבים ודשאי נשמות ישראל, כלומר שגדלים בהגן ומבינים ומשכילים בתורה, ואזי זוכה ללון בעומקה של ההלכה, לברר הדין האסור והמותר הטהור והטמא, ובזה מפריש הטוב מהרע. So when this water is drawn, when this river of Chachma is drawn from the Tefillah into the Torah, into the garden, our souls flourish and grow. What does it mean they grow? It doesn't mean we grow physically. Obviously, that's an after effect. But mainly, the most important growth that is happening here is our consciousness. Okay, the neshama is growing. Just like we spoke about in previous shiurim, especially in the kavanot, we spoke about how there's 3 steps. There's 3 levels of consciousness. There's the consciousness of the fetus, of the ibor, of the baby in the womb, which is completely hidden. And then there's the consciousness when the baby is yonik, when the baby is nursing. And that consciousness is growing and growing until he comes to the consciousness of gadlut. Okay, the mature consciousness. So this is what we're speaking about here, that our neshamot, we are the trees in the Garden of Eden. That's our soul is growing from the water that is drawn from the prayer into the Torah, right? And so that is growing, that is flourishing our neshamot with this consciousness, this godly consciousness, to be able to go into the Torah and clarify and draw the divine will, the divine understanding in every situation in this physical experience. What is the will of Hashem in that situation? Okay, and then through that you're able to clean and purify all of your 4 elements from any negativity. Vezeu umisham yipared. כעל זה נפרד הרע מ4 יסודות ולא נשאר רק הטוב, ואזי והיה ל4 ראשים הם 4 אותיות י' כ' ו' כ' שהם שורש הטוב של 4 יסודות כנ"ל. So he says, and then now, based on this, we understand the end of the pasuk. What did it say at the end of the pasuk? It said, from that gan, from the Garden of Eden, the river is split up into 4 tributaries, 4 smaller rivers. Okay, so he says, what is this alluding to? This is exactly what we said. We said, umisham yipared, from the garden, from what our neshamot, now we were given this tremendous chachma, this consciousness, okay, and that gives us that growth, that spiritual growth. Then we're able, umisham yipared, at that point we're able to separate, umisham yipared, from there it will be separated. We are able now to separate the good from the bad in the 4 elements, and that's the 4 tributaries that are drawn from that river. The 4 elements, we're able to separate from those 4 rivers the negativity, so that only the Yud Kei Vav Kei can be expressed and can be shining through. The final words to the pasuk is that will become 4 heads. That's the literal translation. Okay, we said 4 tributaries, 4 smaller rivers. But the word that the pasuk uses, 4 heads. Okay, the 4 heads, meaning the 4 heads of those 4 rivers. Because through that, what will be revealed is only the 4 heads of the 4 rivers. What's the 4 heads of the 4 rivers? The Yud Kei Vav Kei. Only that will be revealed now that you clarified and you separated the negativity from what is positive, from what is holy. Only the 4 heads will be revealed. It will become 4 heads. Only the 4 heads, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, is what will be revealed and what will be expressed now. That's the culmination of this whole Torah. The idea that through this you're going to come to that complete, pure. The tzaddik gamor, completely clean and completely pure from any of the negativity in the 4, and only the Yud Kei Vav Kei is shining through. That's the 4 letters of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the source of all good in the 4 elements. And so now only what is left is only the good, only the Yud Kei Vav Kei. I think that's a good place for us to stop for today.